Hey guys, Bill coming back at you again with another video. Hopefully you've all had a great week so far. Today we are finally going to be harvesting the last Island Sweet Skunk in the Mars Hydro 5x5, and we'll also take a look at the Granddaddy Purple autos that we started 6 weeks ago. Alright guys, so it's about time to harvest this last Island Sweet Skunk. Now before we do that, I want to show you a picture of 2 weeks ago taken from the last video and see what she looked like then, and then we'll take a look at her now. Alright, so here we have 2 weeks ago. I had contemplated harvesting it on this day, but I wanted to give it a few more days to finish up. And we didn't put a video out last week either, so let's take a look at it today. And here we are. Now, she is suffering from a deficiency at this point. It's commonly known as an H2O deficiency, or otherwise known as a water deficiency. So what the heck happened? Well, as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, it had a couple of days left, and I just wanted it to finish up to get to the peak maturity. Basically, I just want it all cloudy, just a hint of amber, and she was ready to go. But 2 days after that video, I decided I wanted to try something different. If we take just a really quick step back here, take a look at this. Look at the amount of leaves on this, right? It was so loaded in leaves. I had already stripped it down of all the bigger fan leaves, but there was still a ton of leaves on there. Now, anybody knows that grows and trims their own bud, that is hell. That takes so long to trim all those little leaves up. So I decided 2 days after last week's video, I knew that the plant was going to be ready in about 2 more days. And what I decided to do was to come down here and turn off the Air Cube ebb and flow grow system. Now, by doing that and knowing that we are growing in these expanded clay balls, which have a low water retention, they don't hold on to water for very long. Once you drain it, it pretty much drains right out, and then you have a limited supply of water left in there. So I figured within 2 days, the water in that bucket would be gone. And I was pretty much correct. And you can see I have all the hoses are unhooked on both sides. Now, after that, it didn't completely start to dry up right away, because there is still water left in the root system. There's still water left in the stalk. It's going to pull all that. It's going to pull any water it can from the roots and the stalks and push all that water into the buds, where that's where it wants it. It wants those buds to stay alive. It wants those buds. That's the only point to this plant, is for these buds to stay alive long enough to preferably get pollinated. Obviously, we didn't pollinate this plant, but it did take a couple more days, and then I started seeing the plant drying out. I started seeing the leaves. As we can see here, the leaves are all dried up, and they're pretty much to the point of being crispy now, which is kind of what I wanted, because if I would have cut this down when it was done and flipped it upside down and hung it to dry, every one of these leaves would have laid up against the bud and stuck right there, which makes it really, really super hard to trim. So I thought, if I leave it standing up here in the bucket, let it dry, the leaves are all going to still be stuck out, or for the most part stuck out, and it's going to be much easier to trim this. Now, I use a bowl trimmer. At this point, I could throw this stuff in the bowl trimmer and it'll snap off all those little leaves, and it'd be so much easier than trying to manually try to cut those little leaves out that are stuck right in all around the bud. So that was my experiment to do with this one, just to let it dry out on the plant and see how much easier it would be to trim. Now, I'm not going to trim it on video or anything like that. And this one in particular, I don't really need to trim a lot, because this is pretty much all going to be used for concentrates. They're a little crispy on the outside, but the buds themselves are still green in the very center. So it's not like completely dried right out or anything like that. It's just the outside, mostly the leaves are dried up on it, because it'll take all that moisture out of those leaves and still it'll suck that right into the bud. That's the only thing the plants will worry about at the end. Keep those buds alive as long as possible. Now, like I said, this plant is not going to be for smoking. The buds are probably good. You can see they're pretty loose though, right? Really loose larvae buds. They will tighten a little bit. Once the center dries out, they'll be a little bit better, but they're definitely, you know, pretty loose and larfy. I will still bucket off into big pieces and throw it through the bowl trimmer just to get some of those leaves off before processing, just to, you know, clean it up a little bit and get the best quality that I can. And I'll still use the trim itself, but I'll keep that separate from the actual main bud. So that's why I decided to try this, just to see how it would turn out. And actually I'm pretty satisfied with the way it turned out. I probably wouldn't have done it except for the expanded clay balls, because I knew they would dry out really quick and I could time it pretty easily. Now, if you're using soil or if you're using even peat moss, cocoa, that stuff's going to retain much more water and or nutrients. So it would be really hard to time it out, because it might take a week for it to use up the water that's still retained in that other media. With the clay balls, I knew it would happen within a couple of days. So that's what we've done here. I am going to go ahead though. Like I said, it's dried on the outside pretty much, but the insides are still a little bit green in there. So we are going to cut this down. We are still going to hang it for a couple of days, long enough to let it finish drying out on the inside a little bit. And by the way, I also did turn the lights off during this time. The first 2 days when it was still using up the water, I left the light on. But after that, I've had the light off in here for over a week. Now, this light that grew this plant is the Mars Hydro FCE-1500 Evo, and it did a fantastic job. This grow went pretty good, except for one little mishap that we had right at the flip of flower, where we had a blockage in the tube down there that stopped the plant from getting much, if any, water there for about a week or so, and that really slowed down the flowering stretch. If that hadn't happened, this would have been from side to side full, but we still got a good quantity of bud here. Now I can show you, I have it right here. We have this is the Island Sweet Skunk in the 4x4. This was grown organically in the earth box. We harvested this 2 weeks ago, and I just trimmed it up the other day. We got, after trimming, we got 325 grams, which is, I believe, around 12 ounces. So not too bad, considering this one only had a 3-week veg on it. So we got it trimmed up here. We got some decent sized buds here. You know, fairly dense, not too bad, right? Not as dense as some I've had, but more dense than others. This was put through the bowl trimmer, so it definitely could be cleaned up a little bit more, but not too bad. Let's go ahead and see if we can zoom in on here. She was definitely frosty enough, and she smells so beautiful. This really smells good. It's very sweet, but definitely skunky. Now, enough yammering on about that. Let's go ahead and we're going to chop it down, and we're going to hang it right in this tent just for a couple of days just to finish up. Let's go ahead, get the loppers, and we'll take this down. All right, let's get this baby down. We got ratchet strap hooked to this middle one here. Hopefully she won't fall over. So let's go ahead and cut these pipe cleaners off. Now, the only training we really did to this was we tied down the 6 original branches that were on this clone. And that was pretty much it until very late. We did a big defoliation on here. But that's pretty much it. So we got our big fiskers here. We're going to go ahead. I think we can get through there with these. I'll turn it around and get it from this side. Pretty decent stock on it. Let's try it from this side. There we go. All right, so that little strap did what we wanted it to do. Kept it from falling down onto the floor. So now we're going to release it just a little bit, enough to get it off of there, so that we can flip it upside down. Okay, so we'll flip it right up here. All right, so there we go. We got her down, and she would have been pretty heavy, if it had water in it. But she dried out pretty decently. You can see the bottom is still, there's some green here left on the bottom. Now you can see like some of the bottom stuff here. There's really not much to this at all. So I would much rather have the plant that we grew in the 4x4 that only got 12 ounces compared to this, which is going to have more mass, but it's going to be pretty loose. It is pretty loose, and this had a 6-week veg compared to the 3-week veg. But she did grow really symmetrical. She did really good for only tying down these. There's 6 main branches here, and that was it. All right, so there we go, guys. We're going to turn the lights off, and we'll leave it in here. I think a couple of days should do it. I will turn this fan on just a little bit on low, and we'll just have that kind of blowing down off the floor, bouncing off the floor, just to move the air around. These are still pretty thick, and I don't want any chance of mold setting in at this point. But yeah, that's the end of the Island Sweet Skunk. So I think in total, till the time we turn the lights off and let it dry out naturally on the plant, I think it was about 11 weeks. Whereas the one in the organics, that went 10 weeks before we harvested that. Let's go in and check on the Granddaddy Purple Autos at 6 weeks. All right, so here we have in the 2.5x5, we have the Granddaddy Purple Autos that we started, I think it was right at 6 weeks ago. Some are a little bit older than others because they're from seed, and some popped up to a week before the other ones. This was the smallest one in the beginning. This one took a while to germinate, but she finally got there, and she's doing actually really well. She's caught up to quite a few of them. Now, these are all being grown under the Mars Hydro FCE-1500s. It's kind of hard to see that on the camera, but they've been going strong. We've grown with these a couple of times before, and speaking of these lights, 420 is right around the corner, and Mars Hydro is having a huge sale, up to 30% off some of their products. And these particular lights, I just looked on the website, and these are, I believe, 23% off right now. So on the US site, you can get one of these lights for $99 US. That's a steal, guys. The first plants we ever grew under these, it was for the Adelaide comparison grow, and we got between 6 ounces and 8.5 ounces off of these lights. So just the light alone was, I think, 6.5 ounces. The one with the ad lights was like 8.5, something like that. Pretty close to it anyway. So damn, 150 watt light, and if you can pull off 6-7 ounces off of that, $99 is a steal. So go over there, check them out. I will have links down in the description, and if you use my code BWARD, you'll save even more at checkout. So definitely go check them out. So yeah, these are in different stages of flower right now. We have some, like this one here, is just starting to go into flower. Probably a few days now. Same with this one here and this one here. But if we go over onto this one's been in flower for over a week now. Let's see here if I can pull this back. So we got some pretty decent stacking going on now. Now, none of these plants are super huge, which I kind of thought would be the case because we are in these tiny little, I'm going to say half-gallon flower pots. Just an experiment I wanted to try to see how they would grow with those really small pots and a little bit of grow media. Now, we are using an automatic feed for them. We are using the Mars Hydro drip system. So 3 times a day, they are getting drip fed from this. And then you can see the green trays down there. All the runoff actually gets pumped with this little pump down there back into the reservoir. So I've been using that. It seems to work pretty well. And once a week I will change out the nutrient solution, put all fresh stuff in there. I'm using the Kronk nutrients, and they seem to be working out pretty good too, and pretty easy. 1 bottle, you couldn't get much easier than that. You don't have to mix up 50 different things into your nutrients every time. Now, I did switch from the grow nutrients, the Bonnie, and I switched them to the Clyde, which is the flower nutrients or bloom nutrients. I switched them about a week and a half ago. Basically, as soon as I seen this one starting to go into flower, I switched them over to that, and it seems to be working really well. Now, I have pulled these all out and did some LST and defoliation. I've pulled them out probably 3 or 4, probably 4 times at least, and pulled them all down. You can see all the pipe cleaners there. Pulled them all out as much as possible. We do have some taller ones that are starting to kind of take off. Now, one thing I did find with the smaller pots, there's a lot less room to tie to. Normally, in a 5-gallon or a 7-gallon or even a 3-gallon, it's quite a bit wider on the top, so it gives you something to tie down to. When you have something like this and a super small pot, there's really nowhere to tie it to because there is no edge underneath of that. Now, I did just remember that I have these bud clips, so I am going to take these out probably tomorrow and use the bud clips on any that need to be pulled down a little bit. And basically that will just take like the taller ones here, and we'll just kind of bend them out this way to bring them down to the same height. I will work on that tomorrow, and we'll see the results of that next week. Now, where they are all in their flowering stretch phase, I don't like to do too much as far as high stress training. I don't mind taking off a few leaves here and there, pulling down a few branches, but I try not to do too much like super cropping or topping. This is not the time to top. If you were gonna top, you should have done that already in the veg stage. And these are autoflowers, so you really don't have a choice of when to put them into flower. They will just go into flower when they're ready to go into flower. Now, once you've grown autos for a little bit, you can kind of spot, you can tell when they're gonna go into flower pretty much just by watching their grow patterns and watching the bud sites. Yeah, I don't like to do too much, but I have been coming in and like this here, covering this. I will go ahead and I'll pinch off a few leaves off of each plant. Just anything that's really kind of covering bud sites. I see one here is completely covering this bud site down here. So we'll expose that, and just a few little leaves like that. I don't like to do too much more than that until after the flowering stretch is done, and then we will be taking them out. I'll do it on camera. We'll take them out one at a time, and we're going to pull them down as much as we can at that point. Let the light in there, expose as many of the bottom bud sites. Now, they're not very big, but they are filling in this space quite a bit, so we can only pull them down so far too. But we'll take care of that. Probably these ones in about 2 weeks. They'll be done their flowering stretch, so we'll go ahead and do them. Some of them are going to take an extra week or so, and we'll wait till they're done their flowering stretch and do the same to them. But for right now, it's just a matter of, you know, pulling off just a leaf here and there. Anything you see that's like completely covering a bud site or something, kind of like down here, right? We'll just pull that off, expose that. And of course, if you don't like to pull the leaves off, if you're not into defoliation, you can, like for instance, this here, if you don't want to pull that off, you can tuck it, right? You can tuck it down underneath, even pull it down under there. That'll expose it. Now, a lot of times, over time, that leaf will just pop back up and cover it again. But you can continue to tuck them down if defoliation is not your thing. All right, guys, so there we have it. Got a look here at the Granddaddy Purple autos. They're coming along nicely. Staying pretty small, but they're also in little tiny pots, so I didn't really expect too much difference. They didn't flower any faster than if they were in a full-grown pot, though, like a 5-gallon, 3-gallon, 8-gallon, whatever you like to use. I had always heard that they would go into flower faster in a small or shorter pot. That just doesn't seem to be the case in this circumstance. So that's interesting to know. Finally got the Island Sweet Skunk down. A little untraditional by letting it dry in its pot, but I just wanted to experiment with it and see if it was worth it. All them tiny little leaves, that would be a real pain to trim, and now that they're dried on there and they're still stuck out, trimming will be so much easier. Be sure to check back next week. I do have a couple of clones coming supposedly tomorrow, I think, and we're going to figure out what we're going to do next, because we have the 5x5 empty, we have the 4x4 empty, we also have the 3x3, so we will be starting a couple of different things here, hopefully starting next week, so be sure to come back and check that out. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and we'll see you on the next one. Happy growing.